Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me wherever you are joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated if you're joining me on any one of the platforms, whether it is YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whether or not you're listening to this on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from. We thank you. Make sure that you like, make sure that you subscribe, and leave a comment, because how else will we know? Well, I know that you're paying attention to watching unless you leave a comment. So last night, the Miami Dolphins won another game. I believe that this is their 7th game in a row. And almost immediately I started seeing people post who they played in their 7 games. And all of a sudden, that became the issue. Oh, well, yeah, they're on 7 games, but man, look who they've played. They haven't really played anybody. All the teams they've played have been outside of Lamar Jackson. Everybody else has been a backup quarterback, blah, 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 blah. Like, people in media, especially football media, for some reason, I guess they're just incapable of giving evaluations or saying things that are equitable on all sides. I don't really understand why people are banging on Miami and their schedule. Let's review. It's really hard to win a football game in the NFL. Period. Stop. How do I know that? Because the Jaguars have a win. Because the Detroit Lions have a win. Right? These teams are not good. The Houston Texans, they have wins. So even the bad teams, even the teams, the Jets, they have a win. Even the bad teams, the teams that you say in your mind, that team is trash, that team has nothing going for them, that team's not going to do anything, those teams still win games. So it doesn't matter how good you think you are or how bad you think a team is, you can't afford to take any team in the NFL lightly. They're going to beat you if you do. So understanding that about the NFL and understanding that that is the way the NFL has been constructed. It's been constructed so that the difference between the winning teams and the losing teams are not much. And in that league, where it's tough to get a win, people are banging on the Dolphins because they've gotten 7 in a row. Yet those same people today are singing the praises. They're singing the praises of the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals beat a team yesterday that didn't have their starting quarterback, nor their backup quarterback, or their third-string quarterback. They had a guy they signed a few weeks ago who they just activated to the roster this week, who was playing for another team earlier in this year as a backup when their quarterback got hurt. And shout out to Josh Johnson, because he played fantastic for a guy who has not been in an offense. I really just don't understand how this man isn't a consistent member of an organization at least as a backup quarterback. Because every time he comes in, he gives you an opportunity to win because he doesn't turn the ball over at a large clip, and he's able to move the ball pretty well. Right? It's remarkable that he's had multiple years outside of the NFL. I'd love to talk to him. I'd love to, because I want to know how he dealt with watching some of these bum quarterbacks that have been able to sit and eat year after year after year after year, who can't hold his job, and he wasn't even in the league. I'd love to know how he kept himself ready for that 2 to 3 year hiatus he had. where he couldn't get a job in the NFL as a backup or a third string guy? I'd love to know. But Baltimore played Cincinnati with that situation at quarterback. You already know the situation at running back. You already know the situation with the offensive line. You know what's going on with the defense. Everybody's out. They're down to their 27th cornerback. They were signing guys off the street to play defensive back. And yet, in that situation versus that team, with what we saw, everybody stood up and went, oh my God, Cincinnati. Oh my God, Joe Burrow. I love Joe Burrow. He's great. But people were acting as if he has now elevated himself to a top 5 quarterback in the league. What? Top 5 already? It doesn't take anything for them to get elevated to the top 5, huh? Okay, I digress. Because we've talked about that before. So now let's go back over to the Dolphins. Well, look who they played. Is it their fault? Is it their fault? For as much as you want to talk about who they've played, for as much as you want to try to make it seem as if who they played makes their accomplishments null and void, here's what you can't ignore. They had to play somebody, and not everybody has beaten those teams. Not everybody who plays against the teams that the Dolphins have beat, they all don't win. And if they all won, if those teams were all in something, then I understand it. So we understand, we get what's going on. We get what's going on in this world. We get what's going on. We understand that people have their favorites and people have the players and the teams that they want to give like love to, that they want to show love to. Like, we understand that. I'm all for you giving love to whomever you want to give love to. But you don't have to diss one team to prop up another. You can just give these teams their props. Or you can do what most journalists should do, which is look at these things evenly and say, you know what? They've won 7 in a row. Let's celebrate their 7 in a row. Because we know what it's hard to do. It's hard to win 7 in a row. It doesn't matter what your schedule looks like. That's the part that we're forgetting. That's the part that we keep going by. It's hard to win 7 in a row. It's almost like people forgot that the NFL stands for not for long. And so they keep on trying to make to make it a situation where their people should prepare for the future, like 3 and 4 years out, like they're going to be around 3 or 4 years out, when most of the times we understand they're probably not. So who cares who they've beaten? It is not their job to go, hey, how can we come up with the most difficult schedule we can possibly come up with so that we can show we deserve to win these games? No, their job, they don't even get a chance to put their own schedule together. This is a schedule mandated to them from the NFL. So guess what? They're an AFC East team, right? So if the Dolphins, right? Listen to me. If the Dolphins are able to put together all of these wins versus teams that are not that impressive, Isn't their schedule almost identical to New England Patriots' schedule? So why is it that nobody says, well, the Patriots have a lot of wins, but look at their schedule? No one's really saying that, right? So if no one's going to say that about the Patriots, if no one's going to mention the fact that the Patriots get a chance to beat up on the Jets twice a year, if nobody's going to talk about the Patriots having the non-conference schedule similar to the Dolphins, then why are we bringing up the Dolphins? Who cares who you beat? Let's just go over it. So they beat Houston. Houston just beat the Chargers. They beat Baltimore. They beat Baltimore with the quarterback. We know what Baltimore has done. They beat the Jets. They beat Carolina. They beat the Giants. And then they beat the Jets again. And now they beat a New Orleans team whose defense just held one of the Super Bowl favorites and defending Super Bowl champion to 0 points. Now, what changed about the defense from last week to this week? I don't know. It doesn't matter, because whomever you put out there, they've got to play the same way that early in the year when Tua was hurt or when Tua was having issues and Jacoby Brissett had to come out there and get the job done at quarterback. That's the same thing that we're dealing with right now. You can't pick and choose when you want to give people credit. You either need to give everybody credit or give nobody credit. Now, if you want to come up with a new metric and say, okay, we're going to look at everybody's ranking where they should be, not based off the wins, but based off of the wins versus teams with winning records, I'm here for it. Show it to me. Okay, cool. Because then you're right. Everybody is dealing with the same type of, but you can't over here tell me about how much you're impressed by what the Bengals are doing or what the Patriots are doing, right? You can't tell me that, well, the Eagles are making this great run, but then tell me that the Dolphins' 7 wins don't matter because of who they're playing. That's disingenuous. Who cares who they're playing? Nobody cares who they're playing. And if you're over there right now listening to me and you're saying, I care who they're playing, shame on you. Because the only people there to play are the people they have to play. And guess when we'll find out whether or not they're really for real? When they play teams that are better. I posted yesterday that people shouldn't get it twisted, that the Cowboys are only going to go as far as Dakota Prescott takes them. And people were coming on and saying, oh no, the defense is the reason. And I went, please go and read my message again. I really sometimes think that when we look at tweets, we need to reread the tweet to make sure we're not just responding just for the sake of responding. I've done it before. I've started typing a response to a tweet, and then in the middle of typing the response, I read the tweet again and went, oh, I don't really have beef. I don't want no smoke. If I'm saying they're only going to go as far as Dakota Prescott is taking them, is because when he doesn't play well, even with the great defense, they're a mediocre team. By the way, mediocre is not a bad word. Mediocre doesn't mean they suck. Mediocre means mediocre. But that's what we're dealing with, right? When he doesn't do what he does at a high level, they look or they lose. They get beat by a team they shouldn't get beat by. That means when he's on, they blow people out. When he's on, even if the defense isn't popping, we can still get it done. When he's on, it elevates their level to a championship level. Why is that so hard to understand? Why is it that people have an issue with me bigging up Dakota Prescott? If I said the same thing about Joe Burrow, I get no argument. If I said the same thing about Kirk Cousins, I'm getting no argument. Why? It's a cold world out there. We just arbitrarily decide who we want to give credit to and who we don't want to give credit to. I want to give credit to everybody that deserves credit, regardless of who they play, how they play, why they play. Joe Burrow, fantastic game. Anytime you put up a half a thousand on somebody, that's doing something big. Man, put up a half a stack in the game. Shout out to you. Shout out to the Dolphins, getting the win, 7 in a row. Keep it going. Shout out to you. Shout out to the Dallas Cowboys, who look like not a playoff contender, but a Super Bowl contender. Shout out to the Kansas City Chiefs. You should have got them early because now they got it under control and now they're coming for your head. Shout out to the Packers. Keep finding ways to win. Shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles. Shout out to Jalen Hurts. He had a horrible game versus the Giants in the first game. He came back, smoked their boots. Yeah, we can do that. Hey, shout out to Davis Mills. Shout out to Mills. You have looked abjectly horrible every time I watched you play football until these last few weeks. And now you look like a guy who should be a backup. I didn't even think David Mills deserved to be in the league. Now I think, man, that's a really quality backup if you can have him. Can he elevate himself to where I think that he could be a serviceable starter? We shall see. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. We do this thing every day. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree. But whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me anywhere, make sure that you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. Until tomorrow, peace.